I've worn many hats since my daughter began kindergarten at Rockbridge School, from serving as PTO president, fundraising, field trips, and staying up half the night with Becca decorating for the junior prom the year she was class president. So I hope you can see my love and dedication to this school is vast. I have friendships with the majority of teachers in this school district as well as the students. So you can understand my intense concern when my husband and I, along with my brother and sister-in-law, walked through the doors Friday at about 10 a.m. We were in a meeting when we received a text from my son stating that he had only a few people in his class and the remainder were in the Commons protesting. We put him on speakerphone and he explained what he had witnessed. He informed us that while he was in his homeroom class, a few students came to the door and told the class that Ms. Fitzloff said that they could protest in the Commons and no one would get in trouble. Within seconds, a majority of the class erupted in excitement and following homeroom made their way to the Commons. He also said teachers were not taking attendance and there were only a few students in any of his classes. He also informed us that his teacher during first hour held up a newspaper explaining that she was there at the Capitol in Madison protesting the previous day. She went on to say that what the kids were doing in the Commons wasn't even right. They should be sitting and chanting and blocking doorways. She went on to explain that that is what she did when she protested the Vietnam War. We felt very strongly that we needed to have a discussion with Ms. Fitzloff, which throughout the 2 hours we were there, I never saw her come out of her office. She stayed in there with the door closed the entire time. As we arrived in the Commons, it looked to me like it was an overly crowded lunch break. There were girls sitting on boys' laps, there were kids roughhousing, but the difference was there were many that were wearing signs stated things like, "Kill the bill." As we walked into the office area, we were very happy to see we were not the only concerned parents. Mr. Neagle had been there since 8 a.m., and others had been slowly getting calls from their children arriving to show their concern. The first person I noticed of authority was the Vice Principal, Mark Olson, and I do thank him for his time with us. My sister-in-law, who is a freshman, approached him to ask if he could be sure that all the children were accounted for. I told him that my son had commented that the teachers were not taking attendance. He assured us that was not the case. Every teacher knew where their students were at all times, which I had a difficulty believing because while I was there, students were leaving the Commons down the hallway back and forth the entire time. There was no one standing at the doors making sure where anyone was. Later that day, I got a call from a very concerned parent asking if I knew what had happened because she came home during lunch hours to find her child asleep on the couch. He told her he just walked out, got in his car, and left, and nobody questioned him. Then I approached Rachel Schultz. I told her I was very concerned because my son had also told us that teachers were encouraging students to protest. She assured me that was not the case, and we had no proof of that. A few minutes later, when another mother who had been walking her daughter back to class walked up to hear a teacher talking to a group of students with her back towards her. She was explaining to them that they would not get in trouble or get any homework if they went to protest. She was blatantly encouraging them. When she turned around to see the mother, her comment was, "Oh," and I cannot say her name, like, "What is the big deal?" I grabbed her by the hand, led her over to Ms. Schultz, and asked her to share this with her. Then I looked at Ms. Schultz and said, "There is your evidence. This has to be stopped." She wouldn't look at me or even comment. I was talking to two students, and they were assuring me that the teachers were not discussing anything about it in the classroom. As we continued to talk, one of the children said that during a class, their teacher was telling them how much they got paid and how much this would now cost them and how it was going to negatively affect his family. I looked at them and said, I thought the teachers weren't talking about this. They both looked at each other and realized what they had said. Is that putting the children in a difficult position, needing to lie for their teachers? When we spoke with several of the other students with signs, we asked what that meant to them. Most of their responses were similar to, "I don't know, I just know I'm not in class," or "What Walker is doing to our teachers is wrong." When asked multiple times to just send the kids back to class, at one point Rachel Schultz commented to us that she did not have the authority to make that decision like that. I would like to know, if she does not have that kind of authority, then what are we paying her to do? Finally, I was talking to a few students about the small business owner's opinion of the bill. I began to be surrounded by a large group of students. I asked them if they would like to hear the other side. They all yelled in unison, yes. I asked Ms. Schultz if this wasn't going to be stopped anyway, that could we hold a small forum and give the small business owners a chance to just offer them information on how we have been negatively affected by the economy the last few years and how this bill would help us. She said no, that would not be possible. The students began to insist that they get to hear our side. Finally, they were all asked to be seated, and people were given opportunities to make comments. Not only us, but the students as well. I must tell you, I am extremely impressed with the many of those students. They were respectful and passionate. Although I left very upset with the faculty and administration, I left very happy with most of those students. Since that time, I cannot tell you the amount of emails and messages that I have received from students thanking me for being there, for letting them speak and for being respectful to them, and for informing them of the other side. I had multiple comments made to me that they had not heard or even considered the other side that day. The teachers had no right to put any of these students in this position. I trust that when I send my child to school, his teachers and the administration have his best interest at hand. What happened on Friday was not in any of their best interest. To be blunt, I felt that many of these children were brainwashed and peer pressured and basically used by their very own teachers for their own agenda. This is my estimation, and I talked to my son about this, but I would say that probably 50% of those students walked through the door that morning not knowing or caring that there was a bill being set to be passed. But within 30 minutes, they had made a strong stance in backing their teachers. On what information, I would like to know. It bothers me greatly that our well-educated teachers could not see that there was a definite conflict of interest here. There is a whole community full of people, and there is a good chance that many of them do not have the same opinion as they do. So why would it be okay to use a public school for a protest when a large majority of the adults on site will benefit from having these children get passionate on their side? I already have heard of several homes where the students came home very disrespectful when the parents were saying that what had happened on Friday was wrong. And these students were very passionate about protecting their teachers. And I totally understand why. Now, I will admit I was a little bit irritated with the fact that 45 teachers called in sick on Wednesday evening, and then 18 in the last minute on Thursday morning, forcing our kids to have another day tacked on to an already difficult winter filled with missed school days. Do I think that was putting our children's education first? I'm not even going to comment, but I will say that I am strongly bothered by Friday's actions. The administration and faculty was not interested in educating my child that day, which is what they are paid to do. If you have a problem with our government, that is fine, but do not use our children and our school time to help your agenda. I hope that as a school board you ensure that appropriate actions are taken, and I do hope that it is pressed upon the faculty that students like my son, who hold a different opinion than many of the teachers, are not penalized for that. I assure you that if I feel that if any of my comments lead to teachers showing negative or unfair treatments towards my son, the school board will be promptly informed. When Becca did the junior prom, a CD was made with the current music being handed out as souvenirs. One of her classmates was in charge of picking out the songs, and approximately 100 copies or more would have been made of the CD made and handed out with the okay of her advisor. And because of how busy Becca was, she did not have a chance to listen to them herself. After the prom, a parent complained that the language on some of the songs was inappropriate. My daughter, during school, was called to the office and told she had to write a letter that would be sent to every parent of the junior and senior class apologizing for her lack of good judgment. She wrote the letter, and when we received it in the mail, it had been changed and was not the words that she had wrote, but her name was still at the bottom. If my daughter should be forced to apologize for something like that, I, at the minimum, want to be seeing a letter in my mail or in the paper from these teachers apologizing for what happened at our school. And I am aware that any further consequences will be given by the school board. And I will end by saying the only positive that I can see is that if no action is taken, I look forward to the fact that if our teachers are allowed to express their political opinions, I am excited to hear about God more in our classrooms.
Amen.
And anyone is welcome to have this if you would like. Thank you.